Charles Lee was born on January 26, 1731 in Chester, England, the son of John Lee, a British officer, and Isabel Banbury. As a kid, Charles' father desired him to learn other languages than English, so at an early age he went to the Academy of Switzerland. After many years at the academy, he was able to speak Greek, Latin, French, Spanish, Italian, and German.
As a teenager, Charles Lee's father, John, wanted him to join the army like he had and to continue the family tradition of military service. So when he was 14, his father purchased an agency for the 55th Regiment, but was later renumbered the 44th. He soon reported for action when he completed his education.
In the 1750s, Charles' father died, and 4 years later his mother died. Charles' parents had a strain of eccentricity, meaning they had a bad temper, which Charles inherited. Also, as a kid, Charles was scared by death of 5 siblings.
When Charles began duty, he was stationed in Ireland, and on May 1st, 1751, he was accompanied by his regiment for service in America to fight in the French and Indian War.
In America, he went with his regiment to stay in Albany, where he met Indians and married the daughter of a Seneca chief named White Thunder. With his wife, they had twins. Because of the marriage, he was brought into the tribe and was to bear the name Anawantarika, or boiling water.
On 1756, Charles Lee became a captain, and with 2 years later, he was badly wounded on a failed assault of Fort Ticonderoga, and was taken to Long Island to recuperate. At Long Island, Charles Lee was almost assassinated by an army surgeon, but the assassin was caught. He soon returned to his regiment and was back in the fight.
In August 1761, Charles went back to England and was promoted to Major of the 103rd Regiment. 2 years later, the 44th Regiment was disbanded, and Charles was not able to advance in military ranks. Because of Charles' bad temper, he made many enemies that kept him from advancing in the army. Finally, in 1762, he was promoted to lieutenant colonel, but on half pay. Charles did not care very much because he had other plans and did not like the way King George III was leading things.
In 1773, Charles Lee went back to America for a business trip and maybe to settle in America. Lee also wanted to go to help support the Patriots with over the taxation with Britain.
When Lee arrived in New York on October 8, 1773, he spent the next 10 months meeting patriots all over the colonies. Like George Washington, Patrick Henry, and John Adams, the patriots liked him because of his military background, abilities, and believing the patriots had a fighting chance. Next year, he wrote a drill manual for the militia forces and was training men for battle.
On May 1775, Charles Lee purchased an estate in Berkeley County, Virginia for 3,000 sterling. He believed the Patriots would not trust him if he did not live among them.
On June 22nd, Charles resigned his royal commission and was appointed as second Major General of the Continental Army, accompanying General Washington on the left wing to Boston. For the next several years he was a great leader in training troops and construction of entrenchments.
From February 1776 to June 1776, Charles Lee was controlling his own army that was appointed by Congress. He eventually joined General Washington in New York in August and for the Battle of White Plains. During the battle, General Washington thought he and the Patriots should retreat to New Jersey. Because of this retreat, the Patriots lost Fort Washington in Manhattan, 2,900 men, and tons of supplies. After this loss, Lee decided that General Washington was a weak and cowardly man.
On December 12th, Charles Lee was captured and taken to the British headquarters in New York City. For the next 16 months, Charles spent his time in captive worrying to die for being a deserter. Also, for this time, he became angry that Congress and Washington were not doing enough to free him.
While in captivity, Charles Lee came to the conclusion there was no hope of America winning the war, and it was just a waste of lives. Therefore, Charles decided to help the British with a peace negotiation with America. Congress did not agree to the negotiation, so Charles gave General Howe of Britain advice to defeat General Washington.
In April 1778, he returned to the Continental service. Lee told General Washington that the Patriots would not be able to fight the Redcoats in open combat. So on June 28, 1778, Charles attacked the British at Monmouth and was soon in a chaotic retreat. Washington, appearing with the rest of the army, accused Lee of disobeying orders. Then Washington restored orders at the British forces as well.
After the battle, Lee wanted for the court-martial to clear his name. At court, Washington charged Charles with disobedience, making unnecessary, disorderly, and shameful retreat, and disrespect to a superior officer. Lee was found guilty and sentenced of suspension from the army for 1 year.
In 1779, because of his attacks on Washington, he was called to fight a duel with Colonel John Lawrence, and he was after wounded on his arm. On 1780 he was dismissed from the army and retired to his home in Virginia. Charles Lee died on 1783 because of a thoracic cavity in his lungs. He was buried in the graveyard of Christ Church.